Alright YouTube, so today we're replacing the bearings and races on a Ford F-150 pickup truck. This video also serves as a general reference for any heavy duty truck. So the first thing we're going to want to do is remove the tire, remove the caliper and the caliper bracket, the rotor, and that's where we find ourselves at this moment. The caliper bolts on this particular truck are held in by two 13mm bolts, whereas the bracket is held in by two 18mm bolts. Again, remove the caliper first and secure it so that it's not hanging. Here we have it resting on this bearing driver case, but you don't want to kink or break the line. So next we're going to want to remove the dust cover cap. Now we want to remove the cotter pin that is securing the castle nut in place. Now we want to remove the castle nut first. If you're working on a Ford F-150, the retaining nut, which is what the one behind the castle nut is called, is actually a 1 1/16 size socket. And then once you remove the retaining nut, just wiggle the rotor and the bearing and washer should come out. Keep all the hardware together because you'll be reusing that, except for obviously the bearing and race, which we'll be replacing soon. So, and that's it. Now your rotor is off, and what we really are looking to do here is replace the race that seats the bearing, and let's get to it. You're going to want to use a pick or a chisel, and if you have a bench grinder, just try to flatten the tip out a little bit on it. But essentially what you're looking to do is you want to position it so that you can tap the outer race out. So we'll start with that, and that's pretty straightforward. Just grab a hammer, secure the chisel or pick on the edge of the bearing, outer bearing that is, while you have the rotor obviously positioned between the two blocks so you can so it'll fall straight through, and that's it. It's out. Okay, and this is your wheel seal, and that's the outer bearing. And now we'll be doing the same thing with the race, which seats the bearing. Now this is a little more tricky because you don't have much wiggle room, much room for error. So just position that pick on the edge of the race. It's probably best also to clean out the grease from inside the hub so that you have a really good view and the chisel doesn't slip. And let's continue. This is actually what we're looking to remove right here. And let's get to it. Again, position the chisel or pick on the edge of the race, and give it a few taps in opposite directions from each other so that you work it out evenly. Also, another piece of advice, it's best if you angle the chisel or pick at about a 45-degree angle versus 90 degrees straight down, because well, it's just better. You'll notice I'm working it in opposite directions so as to gently pry it out, and there it is. The outer race. Now we'll flip the rotor over so that we can do the same for the inner race. I'm sorry, that was the inner race. This is the outer. So we'll be doing the same thing now with the outer race. A flathead can also serve to help get it out. It's coming.
Bingo.
And there it is, the inner race and outer race, I'm sorry. So this is a hand bearing packer. There's basically, you can try to do it with the hand and just rub grease all over it, but you're not really going to get into the roller bearings, and that's really the main function that this serves. So what you want to do is you put the bearing underneath the spring-loaded holder. Turn this, and here is the one bearing, which we'll leave to the side right now, just to get it out of the way, and we'll do the same with the outer bearing as well. So you want to put the bearing, again, similar to what we just did with the inner bearing. You're going to want to put the bearing in the bearing packer, and then you just put the cover on and apply pressure. And you hear that pop, that just means that bearing has gone through and grease has gone through the rollers. And yeah, it kind of sounds like someone farting, but that's...
It's getting all the air out.
It's getting all the air out. And that's it. If you want to just dab a little more in for the sake of it, but yeah. And then the last thing that we'll do is grab a rag, clean off the old grease from the spindle, and then we'll just grab some fresh grease and just coat the spindle with new fresh grease. And yes, just in case anyone's wondering, this is red tacky grease from Lucas, but any red lithium grease will do the job. Let me show you what I have here. This is a bearing packer. I mean bearing race and driver set.
The reason I say that,
Essentially, this is just going to be used only for the bearings, for the races. I'm sorry, and really doesn't matter which one you do first. We'll just do the outer, since we're already facing it.
The credit card's at the office. That's the thing. Is it worth? Because I'm covering grease over here with Daniel.
Also, very important, I forgot to mention,
Are you that far away?
make sure that the convex side faces up and the concave side faces down. It's tapered so that the bearing sits in there. Make sure that you do not, that you put it right side up. So now you grab the new bearing, position it right evenly on the edge of the hub. I like to run my finger around just to make sure it's nice and even. Before you go ahead and insert the new races, it's recommended to clean the hub. I use brake cleaner. It's the most versatile cleaning substance I'm aware of. And I spray brake clean in the middle of the hub. Grab a rag. I just want to make sure I'm getting any loose dirt and debris out of the hub itself. Spray a little brake clean. Wipe it with the rag. And
At least just get you to the station. And the card's there because I don't have it.
now we'll go ahead and insert the inner race. Position it nice and even.
Call my phone. I didn't realize my
Press it down. And then you have to find one of the drivers that fits right on the race, and that's the importance of this kit right here. That's what this does. So this is a number 5 again on a Ford F-150, but you know, this again serves as a general reference for all pickup trucks and heavy duty trucks. So now that we found the correct size, we position that the driver, the adapter on the driver, and these parts are, and these kits are generally able to be rented at your local Advanced, AutoZone,
Pep Boys, stuff like that.
And now, once that's in position, you grab a big hammer, not a little one, but a big one, and you have one chance, and really one chance to do this correctly. So make sure you do it right the first time, because if it goes in crooked and you have to remove it 9 out of 10 times, you're going to damage the race. So this is really just a one-shot deal, which again emphasizes the importance of making sure it's even. And the reason why I personally just like to run my finger over the surface to make sure it's even. I feel it is at this point, so I'm going to proceed to drive it down. Nice and even still. And it's nice and smooth inside. So now that that race is in, we'll go ahead and insert the outer. Same principle applies here. We're gonna find the correct size. Make sure it's seated evenly. And now we just find the right size for this race. Put the driver, the race, and still even. Still even. Now I normally on the outers, sometimes I don't want the driver to go all the way in and warp the surface on the outside race, so I'll position the old race with the convex side facing the concave side of the old race, basically opposite to each other. And then you'll see I just put it, again, this side is facing up, so I'm using the old race facing down. Put the driver on top, which means I'm gonna have to turn this driver in the opposite direction, reversed. And now I can drive it in the rest of the way. Do not, once you feel, you'll hear a distinctive metallic clank as you drive it in. When you hear that, that means the race is firmly seated at the bottom. Do not go further, because you will warp the surface of the roundness of the hub, and basically that's it. That's the sound you're looking for. And if you go any further, you'll end up damaging the hub itself. But that's about it, YouTube. So now we'll just install everything in the reverse order from removal and call it a day. Take this opportunity to show you now why these bearings failed. Well, the why is probably just due to a lack of general maintenance, but the conditions of what they look like when they fail is you'll see scuff marks, which you can distinctly kind of see here on the rollers themselves. So when you see these scuff marks, when these scuff marks appear on the rollers, and plus you'll see that they aren't as, these are more recessed, whereas these are somewhat more protruded. This is what causes the general imbalance and the wobbly feeling when you're driving. So again, that's one way to inspect them for wear. So now that we've greased the surfaces, we also need to install the inner bearing along with the wheel seal. Same principle, you firmly seat it on the hub, make sure it's nice and even, and then with the driving kit we will find the right driver to firmly put it into position. For the wheel seal, I like to use this side because it's flat, and it is going to stop me once I reach the hub surface. That's it. And now we can go ahead and install the rotor. Make sure you do place it evenly when you're installing it so as not to break the wheel seal. And now that the outer bearing is in, we're going to put the washer in place and the retaining nut. This is arguably the most important part of this process, because if you over tighten or under tighten, you'll be doing this same job again in within a year or so, depending on how many miles you drive. So I really want to take the moment to say that you want to just tighten it until you feel a little resistance. This is not the gym, so no need to go crazy with it. Till you feel a little bit of resistance, and then grab like some general reference. I'll take a lug nut and thread it on this hole. Am I making a? Is it?
Yeah, it's right on.
Okay. And basically, I'm gonna just spin the rotor with not a lot of force. Actually, you'll see it's just like one finger, and that's too much. I'm looking for the rotor to spin 1.5 turns, ballpark, you know. And so that means I need to tighten a little more, which I'm gonna do right now in front of you guys. And now we'll do it again. And spin. Still, it's a little under tightened, so we'll go a little more. And now we'll spin the rotor again. Still a little too much. This is just a trial and error process, and you're just gonna have to find the sweet spot on your particular application. Truck, heavy duty truck, pickup truck, whatever. So we're gonna spin the rotor again.
I don't know where it would be.
That's a lot nicer. You'll see that it stops after about a turn or so. We'll do it again.
Let me make a quick call.
That's about 1.5. And again, just to confirm, it could stand just a frog's hair more. And again, we'll spin. That is perfect. Watch the lug nut. Spin. Perfect. So now, brand new cotter pin. interfering with one of the holes on the bottom, the tabs on the bottom, so I fold it back and last but not least, with respect to the hub itself, just make sure you reinstall the dust cover. Just gently drive it in, and now we can reinstall all the accessories. Make sure that the caliper bolts, the two large 18s, are tightened really well. I normally use a leverage bar on a 3/8 ratchet, or you can just tighten it with a 1/2 inch. And place the pads in.